time for talk about games. Played by Ryan and Mike. A modern, a retro video game show. Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff like Star Trek. It's a blast, our gaming podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk About Games. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike, and today, I know my game is going to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit. What do you got?
I got Hello Neighbor.
Hello Neighbor.
I know we had talked about it.
Hello Neighbor. So it's a Mr. Rogers game.
Oh yeah, it's totally cool. First you change your shoes.
Okay.
Then you put on a sweater.
Really?
And then you talk to puppets.
Won't you be my neighbor? It's going to be great.
gonna
Lady
be-
Elaine? Do you have to kill Lady Elaine Fairchild?
Kill? Can you explain this to me? I didn't know that there was killings in.
Well, that's right. I forgot. The neighborhood of make-believe does not have killings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood growing up?
You know what? I watched it a good bit as a kid, to be totally honest, because like I think like we didn't have cable until later.
Mm-hmm.
So like PBS was where it's at. So you had your Sesame Streets and your Who Framed.
Did you watch Bob Ross?
Yes, I did. Actually, my mom paints.
I like that you were going to say Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers. You know, my mom paints like watercolor and oil paintings and like stuff like that. So yeah, Bob Ross was on in the house.
So yeah, Bob Ross.
You know what I didn't watch? I didn't watch 3-2-1 Contact, but I would see like the ad for it.
How about The Frugal Gourmet?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
There was a lot of programming back then. I grew up on, I guess, like early Sesame Street, you know?
Yeah.
And 80s Sesame Street. And then I watched a lot of Mr. Rogers growing up. And I loved watching the segments with Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
But when it would go to the neighborhood of make-believe, then I would kind of tune out of that.
Right.
Like I kind of like some of the characters. But like Daniel Tiger, who got his own cartoon like later or whatever.
Right.
Like some of the characters were cute. XDL was cute, but a lot of those puppets were like really disturbing.
I think Mr. Rogers was one of the first things that was kind of the phenomenon that streamers have today, or YouTubers in general, like parasocial relationships. Like Mr. Rogers is talking to the kids.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like it's like ASMR almost.
Right.
He's very like calm, very like you think of it as being creepy, but it wasn't in the context of Mr.
You
Rogers.
feel like Mr. Rogers, like one of your relatives, or he's like your uncle or your father or something like that, and you feel like you know Mr. Rogers, but you don't. You don't know that man. You've never met that man.
Right.
Like, and that's, the problem that, people have, online with YouTube and Twitch and whatever. People think that they know, streamers and whatnot, and you do not know these people. You think that you know them.
You think you know them.
Because you see their online, personality, but they're not your friends.
And then it's yeah, exactly.
They're not.
And it's funny, like shows like The Simpsons kind of then subvert that, right? Like Mr. Rogers doesn't work without trust, right? But then when you have Krusty the Clown is like the metaphor for the other side of it, where it's a disingenuine personality.
Yes.
Where he's so much not like
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
They're like the two opposites. And my journey in Hello Neighbor, which I'm going to go into now, kind of feels the same way, because this is a game that's dishonest about its motives.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about what Hello Neighbor is. But first, I have to say, this is a game that was primarily made to have somebody watch you play it, and not a game that I think was made to be played.
So this is for YouTubers and streamers to do videos on?
That's what I think.
One of those. And there's a bunch of games that I feel have been made like that.
Yeah.
So this is one of those.
And I just want to tell the audience, I played through Act 1 and Act 2 with you watching, which is kind of funny, with me already having known what to do. And I don't think that that's the way that Tiny Build, the publisher of this game, would want this game to be played. I think the way they would want this game to be played is for you to use it as a sandbox.
Just go around and kind of do whatever you want.
Just mess around. Because, even though like you get caught a lot, it's easy to die in this game. I think that the stakes in this game couldn't be lower. And that's kind of frightening, because this game has very serious themes. One of the really serious themes is like there's signs about missing children all over the town, and then you're a child.
Right.
And you're going down the street with your ball, and then there's this creepy old man that's in this creepy old house, and the game doesn't really address that. You're just kind of there. It's almost like the game was built to be one of those YouTube shows like pre-adpocalypse where like we're showing kids things we shouldn't be showing them.
And so I watched you play a little bit of this, and so this kid is, you know, walking down the street, he's kicking the ball, whatever, and then I guess he sees this house, and then I know there's like a cutscene or something and shows that you have to get a key. I just don't understand. If I was that kid and I'm walking down the street and then it's like, why does this kid? I didn't understand why the kid goes into the house in the first place.
Because he sees like the neighbor like straining himself and he hears screams. Like if I was that kid, I'm not going into that house.
Right, the same thing. I see this weird. I don't care what's going on. I'm not going into that house one way or the other.
Right.
Oh, another thing, it's like breaking and entering.
Yeah.
And even as a little kid, you know, oh, I'm not supposed to go into that house. So it was weird to me from the beginning that the kid even goes into the house.
Yeah. I mean, I think the game is kind of surreal without purpose. It's just weird shit for the sake of weird shit. So if you're watching somebody play it disjointed, you don't
think about it.
You don't think about it.
Okay.
It's just like, oh, this crazy thing happened. Like, for instance, at the end of Act 2, you do something that makes no logical sense.
So, and what's that?
So you unlock a dollhouse and you open the doors to the dollhouse. And the dollhouse is a rough look at the path you could take in the game. There's a toilet at the bottom of the steps and there's a weird generator thing at the top. If you're in the real house, not the dollhouse, but the real house, there's a weird generator thing at the top, and there's
the dollhouse kind of represents what to do, sort of.
Sort of. So you go down to the bathroom, and there's a weird Lego man, like a tiny Lego man,
right,
on it. And then if you run back to the dollhouse and put him on the toilet in the dollhouse, and then run back down to the bathroom, he'll be big again. There'll be a big guy down there.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense. And then you get the crowbar, and then you can open...
Is that for the streamer to be like, whoa?
Whoa, what's going on? It's crazy. But this game is full of those moments where it's like, how... You have to put serious time into this game to get anywhere.
So let me ask you. So we definitely live in a generation where they are making games to make it so that streamers and YouTubers have a reaction so that when the viewer watches the YouTube video or the stream, they see the personality reacting, which in turn might make the person want to play it because they saw their favorite personality react to this game. Is it correct that like this is a video game development mindset now?
Yes, the 100%. We have our Patreon exclusive episode, Phasmophobia, and the reason it's a Patreon exclusive episode is because we felt that the game was not worth your time.
I played a little bit of it, and now listen, I didn't play the game for 100 hours or anything, so maybe I'm wrong. But the part of that game that I played, everything was like pitch black, and like we walked around, and I did get a light and stuff, and it just seemed like a lot of nothing going on in that game.
Hello Neighbor is a much better game than Phasmophobia, but the goals of them.
You know what else I can say
similar.
about Hello Neighbor? The color was nice, and I did like the style of like how the doors kind of look almost like a little like Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah, you know? I mean it's definitely the art direction of Hello Neighbor is excellent for a game that's so indie. Mm-hmm. You look at the credits of this game, because after I beat it, I looked at the credits. There's like, other than the publishing team, there's like 7 people worked on this game or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very small number to create all of those art assets and all of that. And they made it over time. And the game has a 3-act structure, and then it has a final boss.
Okay.
And in the 3-act structure, it starts with the kid with the ball he wants to find out what's in the basement.
And then I know eventually he grows up.
He gets locked in the basement, and he has to escape. Mm-hmm. Once he escapes, he grows up. And then he gets evicted from his apartment, So he goes back to the old neighborhood to find it destroyed. A dark creature of some kind poisons him. So he ends up passing out in the remnants of his old house. And that's where Act 3 happens, where he's in this like mega house.
Right, I saw you playing that.
Right? You go through the mega house, you get to the end of that, which is the majority of the game is Act 3. If it takes 45 minutes to get through Act 1 and 2, it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to get through Act 3.
So what I saw of you playing this game, I saw
1 and 2.
You know, you're like the kid in the house, and then you wander around, and then maybe you find like a key or a wrench or something like that, and then you're wandering around with the key, and you're like, oh, I can use this red key to open this door. And then you open the door, and then you go into the next room, and then the man finds you, and then he grabs you, and then you end up not dead, but he like traps you in a room or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you do the same thing again. Now that door that you just unlocked with the key stays open, and it seems like there's no... In like old games, like if you're playing like R-Type and you die and it sets you back to the beginning, it's not like that at all. Like it saves all that progress.
Yes.
So it's kind of like taking the challenge away
In
from it.
this game, you keep your inventory, and the state of the world stays the same between deaths. But you always start in the same spot after you die.
You know how we talk about how there's elitists for like roguelikes and roguelites?
Yeah.
It's like this is like those people would hate this
game,
because it's just so they kind of like give you everything.
The problem is that this game has to be this way because it's so incomprehensible. Like, it's like, what the hell should I be doing?
Well, that's true. And I do think that that's the challenge of it, because I could imagine if I tried the game myself, which it didn't look like the type of game that I would play, but if I did try it, I would not know what the fuck to do.
It's a puzzle game.
Right.
It's a puzzle game. It's like, imagine if you took Maniac Mansion and put it in a blender and made it 3D. That's this game. But it makes 1,000% less sense than Maniac Mansion.
Like, you could figure out what to do in Maniac Mansion for the most part.
For the most part. Like,
well, there's some things in that are pretty cryptic.
What I like about Maniac Mansion is like where the bad guys are is like very predictable. Mm-hmm. In this game, the neighbor can just get to a spot and you're like, could you freaking move?
Well, Right. I mean, I watched you play it, and what happens is like the music changes so that you know he's getting near you.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, but I see what you're saying. Like, he might be in the way, and you're just like waiting and waiting for him to get the fuck out of the way, and then
I want to talk about some like creepy scenes that are just injected in the game for no reason. The first one is on the second map when you get the little man
out of the dollhouse.
If you get the dollhouse, once you open the dollhouse, if you die, the first time you die after you open the dollhouse, you go to a cutscene where you go on a dark ride. And it's creepy, and there's like babies crying.
What is the point of that dark ride?
Nothing.
Okay.
There's no point. In the third act, there's a cutscene where it's a school, and there's all these mannequins that are running to class. So the bell rings, and the mannequins all run. And then the bell rings again, and they stop. And you have to avoid the mannequins by hiding in lockers. And it just happens randomly.
I think I know what the point is.
Huh?
The point is for, like, the streamer or, or the YouTuber to be like, whoa, isn't this crazy?
And they're all, like, old-style, like, dress mannequins that would be in, like not like plastic
Victorian
mannequins
era.
like we have today. Mm-hmm. Not like plastic mannequins, but, like, mannequins that would be in, like, the 20s or like
a Victorian era
or like even before Victorian era. Yeah, exactly. And then there's a grocery cutscene where it doesn't tell you anything. And there's all these dudes going around, and your grocery cart is on a track, but their grocery carts are just going everywhere. And there are shelves that are like huge, like surreally huge.
Yeah.
And all you have to do in that scene, like, it's not hard. You have to find 5 items and put them in your cart.
Okay.
But my big problem with that is that the control in this game sucks so bad. This game...
Yeah, I saw you trying to, like, you're trying to get up to a window and you're stacking boxes on a bench or something to try to get into this window, and you were having a lot of trouble just stacking the boxes and then like jumping up. Like you jump up to the box and then you like fall off,
right?
Or you jump up and you're like on the side and then the boxes are falling over, and I'm just like, this doesn't look fun to me.
Yeah, the physics are weird.
Yeah.
Like there's times when you slam a door and like you just unlock the door and the door opens into a lock or into something like that, and there are times when you're trying to control things and it's just so difficult and it's a pain. But again, it was a game that was made by like 7 people. How can you blame them for that?
I guess.
But then it's like, I also go back to like, Hello Neighbor is a big freaking deal. They sell Hello Neighbor boxer shorts at Target, right? How did this game become such a big deal? And the other thing that surprised me is, I was playing this on my Switch and my son walks in the room and he's like, Dad, oh, that's Hello Neighbor. I'm like, you should know about this game.
Right.
Like, I don't want you playing this. But he knows about it because it's a kid's
on,
game.
like, YouTube or
How
something.
is it a kid's game? It's not a kid's game.
Maybe it's been mistaken for one because of the art style, and it's like there is a kid, and like if you just saw maybe some screenshots from it, it'd be like, oh, it's like a house, and like there's somebody kicking a ball around outside or whatever. It might look like that, but then you find out it's really not at all.
But, maybe it's okay because I'm like, oh, this game is scary. It has a lot of themes, but then it's like, oh, maybe the kids don't know.
It goes over their head.
It goes over their head, maybe.
Well, like, I would watch stuff when I was a kid that is supposed to be children's programming, namely, like, I used to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
You watch Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid, they're making all kinds of jokes on that show that if you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, shit, I can't believe they said that. But then you realize, oh, if you're a kid, you wouldn't get it.
Right.
So it's okay because of that.
And it's also a very hard game. So, everybody I talked to about this game, I walked around the office and I talked to people about this game. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, you mean that's the game where you're like trying to get in the house? Mm-hmm. Like, and you're like a kid in the yard trying to get in the house. And I'm like, yeah, but then it's also like all these like...
Well, at first glance, that's what it looks like.
Right, but once you get deeper into it, it's like he's got like people locked in his basement, maybe.
Right. Like the guy, yeah.
And it's like it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse till you get to the end. But I don't think any kid is getting to the end.
Yeah, probably most people that play it, like, if they do even, like, they dick around for a few minutes and then can't figure out what to do if you actually play it. But I think most of the people probably just watch the YouTuber stream it or play it and like haha, he said the funny thing.
Yeah.
That's
like whatever.
And maybe they bought the game, but then they played it for a couple minutes and
they're like, oh, it's not as fun to play this game as it is to watch Markiplier
or whoever
play it.
Probably. I would imagine that would be this situation.
Yeah, because there's no way it's as fun.
And then of course there's gonna be people that went through and completed everything.
Right.
We're not saying that there isn't. But I think probably the overwhelming majority, it was probably like that.
The other thing about this game is it introduces so many concepts that there's probably people who are like trying to figure out the lore. Mm-hmm. But then you get to the end and you're like, there is none.
There's no lore.
They just did whatever.
Yeah.
There's no deep lore. We're not getting answers.
Yeah.
It's just totally surrealist.
But you are right, and the main takeaway I have from this is, sure, some YouTubers could play some indie game and it could blow up and become a big, huge game, but how do you go from that to where there's merch in Walmart and Target and stuff like that?
I guess it gets big enough. Why is Ryan's toy review merch in Target?
Right.
Why, I think once something gets to the point where it's big enough, it just gets on their radar. Somebody licenses it. Like there are companies that just do nothing but license stuff.
You know what I see everywhere now? I was at the store just a couple days ago, and I see, remember Golden Books?
Yeah.
Well, there's new Golden Books, and there's a new one that's like Betty White is on the cover, and it's like Betty White Golden Book. And it's like, I've noticed like over the last, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, like they've really started marketing like Golden Girls stuff, and like they have Fathom events for that. And like, isn't it weird? Like you and I, like we grew up in the 80s, early 90s, and all that. I remember when that show was on the air. Could you imagine us then thinking about 30 years later that there was going to be this like Betty White merch at the store?
Well, here's the thing.
It's like weird. It's weird to me how, and we were talking about Bob Ross earlier.
Yeah.
It's weird to me how these older personalities are now just on T-shirts and whatnot, and it's like I wonder how Bob Ross would feel about that, and I wonder how some of these actors, like how would have Rue McClanahan have felt that she's like on all these T-shirts and stuff? Maybe they would like it, maybe they would think it's great, but what if they didn't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like, unfortunately, Golden Girls is a good show.
It is.
Bob Ross is a good guy, good painting,
sure,
all that, great method, all the stuff.
Yeah.
These people have passed, but I think it's kind of a meme. Like, I hate to say it.
I think it is too.
It kind of cheapens it a little bit. It's like, oh, Bob Ross, he's smooth. I think it kind of gets away from it.
From what the point of it was.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel about it too. Like when I see, Bob Ross and Betty White stuff like slapped on the side of, some T-shirt or some like lunchbox or something, I'm just like, that's like, I don't know.
I mean, the other thing is, I think we have spent the better part of the last 20 years being nostalgic of the 20 years previous that as a society. Mm. And I think the reason we have is because I think that we're afraid to make new things. Oh. I think the barriers, the financial barriers and the fear of failure has paralyzed us not to create.
Absolutely.
I think that sucks because when a J.J. Abrams comes along or something like that, he's not Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Because he just followed a well-worn path, and he never will be, because he hasn't made those things. And that's true of so many directors. Like we see it with like A24 with like this art house stuff like Midsummer and Uncut Gems, things like that, where they're trying to do a new thing, but it's so small scale, it doesn't hit the culture. We'll never have a Ghostbusters. We'll never have a Back to the Future. We'll never have a Super Mario Brothers because it's just not economical. Mm. And when somebody does make something wonderful, they get shouted out by the huge mega franchises.
Right.
So I think that's why we're seeing Betty White and all of this, because the marketers are just clinging on to every last scrap of the past.
Right. Because I'm trying to think, like, let's say it's like 1985. Would you walk into I don't know, a department store then and see like somebody from like the 60s on a T-shirt that your parents would buy? Like my parents were not buying T-shirts with characters on them in the 80s.
Right.
Straight up, never. I think my dad had a Howdy Doody shirt, like one, but most of his clothes didn't have characters on it or anything like that. Now, a lot of people our age it's like, oh, we got the Betty White shirt, or we got the whatever, the promotional stuff. I do that, and I'm not like, I'm not disdaining any of that. I'm just making an observation that it's totally changed. Like the culture has changed.
Right. I mean, people don't dress up anymore in general. They'd rather, they're going to be a billboard for a brand from 20 years ago or whatever. I think we had a little bit of that nostalgia as kids. I don't want to discount that fully.
I think there was.
Because you would get on Nick at Night and you'd watch Bewitched and I Love Lucy and I Dream of Jeannie and stuff like that.
And there was always the reruns, and everything.
Sure, yeah, and you could catch that stuff. I mean, think about that. Like, you don't see it now, but Mike and I were watching black and white TV in the 90s on cable stations.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's crazy to think of that.
Some people come after me in my Twitch streams and chat, and we'll get back to the game in a second. But they'll say, like, oh, how could you like... such and such movie, it was from before you were born. And I'm like, or a TV show or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, there was reruns in the 80s and 90s, I grew up watching reruns. I would watch stuff like, All in the Family and What's Happening and Different Strokes and like all these shows from like the 70s and 60s and stuff. And like Mr. Ed and even older stuff.
Mr. Ed, exactly.
And, like older stuff like that. And like that's how we grew up. And it's amazing to me how some people now can't understand how you might like something from before your generation.
Right.
That's insane to me. Give me a couple examples of things from before you were born that you really like got into or loved. I know you have things.
Star Wars.
There you go. I mean, that's the biggest example in the world right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
That'd be like somebody coming, how the fuck you never saw Star Wars, you're full of shit. Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it on a VHS tape. What are you talking about? Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Christmas songs, Bing Crosby.
Right.
Right? There's a lot of movies like I've enjoyed. Like I know I'm going with like Christmas stuff, but like It's a Wonderful Life or Casablanca or whatever. Just anything. Like
so anyway, the point of it is, it's amazing to me how some people cannot understand or respect that people can like things from before their generations.
Right.
The people that are like that.
Yeah.
Blow my fucking mind and how fucking stupid that thought is, that you can't like something from
and
before
not just
you were
media.
born.
Like I used to own a 1970 Mustang, Ford Mustang.
Right. And I like old bicycles, like old Schwinn's and
Yeah.
stuff. Like, so anyway, so Hello Neighbor, what else you got?
Yeah, I mean it's a weird game. It's a flawed game. It obviously has a lot of randomness for the sake of randomness, which I guess if you're talking about a stylistic thing of the current generation, randomness for the sake of randomness is like a huge theme in a lot of media now, right? And this game is like the poster child for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was entertained. I would say like if you play this game with a walkthrough, you can probably get through it in 3 or 4 hours.
If you want to just look at the walkthrough, play the game, look at the
play
walkthrough,
the game, look at the walkthrough. I mean, if you want to mess around, you probably get frustrated. But this game is super low stakes.
Would you use a Prima strategy guide for this game?
Dude, I wish. Dude, that's something I'm nostalgic of. Like
Those
the
old
strategy guides, like going
right.
through, especially like JRPGs, because the writers would always have like little anecdotes and stuff,
Right.
which is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of randomness in it, and it's fun. I mean, it's not horrible.
Were the things about it you enjoyed? What are some?
Yeah,
positives?
I mean,
'Cause there's a lot of negatives.
I like the way it looks, even though like the physics and stuff are bad. I think it has a compelling art style.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of it. I wish it was a little more grounded in reality. But I mean, it's not. This game is not a failing grade.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the criticism I have, despite the streamer connections, all of that randomness, all of that. I mean, this game's like an 8 out of 10. It's not horrendously bad.
It's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it has it's like a C plus C minus
Okay.
situation, right? You know,
Right.
like if I had to give it like a letter grade, it's you know, you could do a lot worse. And it's unique. Like we need to have games that follow the legacy of the point and click games, like your Monkey Islands and your Maniac Mansions and stuff like that.
So it's a game that's trying to do.
It's trying to do that, and it's a puzzle, and it gets away with being kind of crappy because the stakes are so low. If this game like undid all your progress when he caught you, it'd be a flaming pile of shit.
Okay, I mean, with the type of game that it is,
Right?
I feel like there's some kind of in between.
Yeah.
There. I don't know what it is. I'd have to think about it for a while, but something like another way to do it so that I don't know. I have to think about it.
I think that I probably feel the same way about this game as you do about your game. That it's okay. There's a lot of things that are interesting, but it has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think you're you're right. So we can get into it. So my game is going to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit
For the NES?
For the NES. So
LJN.
Yeah, I want to throw out right from the beginning with this is that when I'm talking about any of this or that I don't like anything, I love the movie.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the movie. Movie's great. Love the movie. So this is all about the video game, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And yes, I know that there was originally Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle.
Yeah.
Was Roger Rabbit. You know the bricks.
Yeah.
In when Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle starts and it's like the title screen. If you think about it, the bricks. And we got the bricks here. That's a very Roger Rabbit thing. Because at the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they're dipping, Roger and Jessica into the dip to kill them or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're in the warehouse and it's all bricks. The bricks is like a thematic thing. I think it's on the movie poster even for Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
So they didn't get the license for.
They just got Bugs Bunny.
They got Bugs Bunny instead in America, but in Japan. The original Crazy Castle was Roger Rabbit. That's the original Roger Rabbit game.
Wow. I didn't know that.
But anyway, so we're not talking about that game. We're talking about the one we got here. The Roger Rabbit game we got here was the LJN Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is a bizarre game that's kind of like nothing else.
Yeah. Well, much like other LJN games, I think there's a few things about this game that are really off-putting. To me, that make it hard.
Oh, there's a bunch.
Like the driving controls are a great example of that. Maybe, I haven't played it in a long, long time, but I remember the driving, like how you're on like one side of the road and stuff like that.
You can drive on either side of the road. It's more like the directions might take a minute to get used to. It's a little hard for me because I've been playing that game since I was a kid, so it's intuitive to me.
Right.
But absolutely, I can understand if you haven't played it before, it might be weird.
Yeah.
But it's something that you can get used to. What else did you think was bad about it?
I think like the items, like having like the limited items and like the money for the items and finding items is weird. Like the items are cool.
Some of them are cool, yeah.
But they could be cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that I never felt, I have the same criticism with The Boy and His Blob.
Yeah.
That I didn't feel like I had enough like items
that were cool.
Like you're giving me all these cool items, but then I have like they're hard to get, and I gotta like find them weird places.
I think in that you have to memorize like with Boy and His Blob. It's like, oh, I got to know that the red jelly bean makes it like a ladder or whatever it is.
Right.
It's been a while since I played that.
But like that game, like if you run out of jelly beans, you're just fucked. At least in this game, he could still punch.
He still has the punch. So just let's talk a little bit about like what the game generally is. So you're Eddie, you're the detective, and you have to basically you walk around with Roger Rabbit, and you have to kill Judge Doom. The idea of the game is to kill Judge Doom, I guess. And you're going around this big overworld map, and you got to collect certain things. You have to collect 4 pieces of a will, and then essentially after that, you just got to make it to Judge Doom. So there's different areas in the game, and this is where I'm going to draw a little bit with the whiteboard here. So
all right,
come over here to the whiteboard. So you've essentially got you've got L.A.
Yeah.
And then above LA, sort of like up here, there's like a tunnel that goes up, and this is like, I don't know, North Hollywood, whatever, the north area, I don't know what they call it. And then there's a tunnel down here.
Is that the one you have to like blow up with like
yes.
Yeah.
That's the tunnel.
I remember that.
That's the tunnel that goes down to Toontown, and it's like this long ass like tunnel that goes, and then you're in Toontown, and then Toontown has like another, like a second Toontown, so we can call that like Toontown 2, I guess. Yeah. And then over here there's like the magical building over here, and that's essentially what the map looks like in the game. You start in LA, and there's all these like buildings all over the place.
Yeah. And
you go into building to building to building, and you go into one building, and then you go into like a hotel or something, and you talk to somebody, and it's like, hey, is there anything in this building? And they're like, this building's empty. So you're like, okay, good. You leave and you go to the next.
Is it random?
It's all random, and we're going to get into that. This game is all about RNG.
Yeah.
So RNG is randomness. So basically you're going from building to building, and then The next building, and they're numbered too. So this building might be like number 10, and this building's number 11, and this building's number 12. So you go into this one, you say, okay, building 10, they said there's nothing in it, then you never have to go back there. So that's good at least. But then you go into building 11 and it says, you talk to the person and it says, oh, hi, yes, there is something in this building. But then what you have to do is you have to start searching the whole building.
There's like drawers and...
So there's like drawers and shit. And then you have to search every drawer, and it takes a long time to search the drawers. Like just one drawer, it's like searching, and then there's like a pause in between, and then it's like empty, and then you go to the next drawer, searching, empty, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And then you go through a whole room, and then there's like a mouse hole, and you search it, empty, and then you're like, all right, there's nothing in this room. And then you go to the next room, and there's like 20 rooms, and this is one building, and then you go building thing to thing to thing, and then finally you find the item that you need, and it might not even be something that's important. Like you might find like a boxing glove or something that really doesn't help you very much, because there's a couple of enemies in this game. There's the weasels.
Yeah.
That'll chase you around in their car. And then at the very end of the game, there's Judge Doom. And like, let's say you had a boxing glove. The boxing glove does nothing on Judge Doom. And then the weasel that you fight here and there outside the buildings, like the items don't really usually help that much. You find Benny the cab and you start driving around, and the driving controls can be bad and stuff. And then every once in a while, the weasels will have like a car and they start chasing you.
Yes.
And when they touch you, they tell you they don't let you have Roger Rabbit back unless you answer one of their jokes. And it's always like a really terrible joke. It's like something about like a tube of toothpaste or some stupid...
Do you have those all memorized?
If I was actually playing the game, I have a lot of them memorized, but not all of them. I played it recently, and there was like some that I was dying on because I didn't know the answer. But I only recently figured out what the purpose of all that is.
Yes.
So if you keep getting the jokes and you purposely like let them keep having you have the car hit you or have them hit you, have them capture you. If you answer the jokes correctly and you keep doing that, your power level like goes up.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So let's say you answer 20 of those riddles or jokes correctly, you can get your power all the way up. And what that's good for is when you're fighting Judge Doom later at the end of the game, it helps you about 2% more than it normally would be to kill Judge Doom. So really, it's not worth doing.
That sucks because like, and that goes back to things with like Friday the 13th and other games like that, where it's like there's good ideas. It's so close.
Execution.
It's so bad execution because we have been talking about how hard it is to punch Judge Doom now for like 15, 20 years. Like you and me directly.
Yeah.
Like punching Judge Doom.
Yeah.
Boy, that sure does suck. And we talk about it constantly. It's like if they had made one change to the game would be playable.
And I thought that once I figured that out, I was like, oh, you answer the jokes and it makes you more powerful, and maybe that's how I can kill Judge Doom quick. And I was like, oh my God. So I played through the game a whole another time.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and I was so excited. I was like, maybe you only have to punch him like 3 times that he dies or something. I was like so excited.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's better, but like I said, by about like 1%. It's like this much fucking better.
Oh.
So there's like 2 games going on here, in my opinion, with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's this shit.
Yeah.
And then there's the Judge Doom fight, which is a whole different beast. That's like a whole other conversation.
Right.
Because that's a whole other thing going on.
There's one thing I want to talk about. Like, despite the problems with this game is technically amazing for the NES because it has all of these worlds, all of these zones, it has all these items, and the sprites are big.
Yeah.
And there's no reason in the NES game that Roger Rabbit should be on the screen.
Yeah, he run because they wanted kids to be able to see Roger Rabbit, I think.
Right, but do you know what a technical accomplishment that Roger Rabbit running around on the screen and having AI and bumping against things and stuff is?
Right.
Holy shit.
Right.
Roger Rabbit is amazing.
There's so many like good ideas in this game. It's just
I guarantee you that whoever developed that game showed that to Nintendo and they were like, wow. This is going to be the greatest game. This is going to be the head of our fall lineup.
Yeah.
Right? Because that Roger Rabbit is fucking amazing for the NES, right?
Yeah.
And then you play the game and it's the game.
Yeah, if you look at if you would have looked at the screenshots back in the day, you would be like, "Oh, this looks like it's gonna be cool," and then you play it and you're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's so much to this game. So let's talk about like items for a second. Like, so you start off the game, you have to get wallets. So you start getting all the wallets, and then you go to the shops. You go to the shop, and there might be like a whistle.
Yeah.
So you can use the whistle to hail Benny the Cab, or you go back into the shop again, and then it might be a bomb or something, and whatever. You can get all these different items. So you have to go through all of this, and you have to find the pieces of the will. So there's going to be one piece of will here, one there, one here, one here. There's a piece of will in each area. And you don't know where the will pieces are unless you happen to randomly come upon it. Or what you can do is you get a rose, and you bring it to Jessica Rabbit. But you can't go to Jessica Rabbit until you have the password, because she's in like a building and there's a big gorilla, and he's like, you can't come in. So you're like, fuck, I need the password. So you got to go to all these buildings and then find the password. If you find the password and some roses, you go into the comedy club where there's like a little bird like playing the piano, because they couldn't get the license for Daffy Duck and Donald Duck, which are in the movie.
Right.
So you see this little bird, like it's like generic bird playing the piano.
That's funny.
So Jessica Rabbit's up there dancing around or whatever. You throw down a rose on the ground. She hops down, and then you can talk to her, and she will tell you where one of the pieces of the will is. So, hey, Jessica, where's the piece of the will? And she's like, it's in North Hollywood. So you're like, now I know. It's in a cave in North Hollywood. So then you can go up there. So you go up to the cave. So you just found out the other information. Okay, I know that I have to go into this area to get a piece of the will. Then there's a cave here, there's a cave here, there's a cave here. You go, you drive around, you check the caves, and then eventually you get inside one of the caves and you're like, oh shit, it's pitch black in here. I can't be in this cave because I don't have a flashlight. So then you come back to LA.
Yeah.
And then you start looking for the flashlight. So you might go into the store, but the store isn't selling a flashlight. It's selling cheese. And you say, okay, well, I'll buy the piece of cheese, but I still got to find the flashlight. So then you go into another building. And then you're checking off building, until finally you find a building that has the flashlight. And you're like, all right, now I got the flashlight. You drive back to the north, you go in the cave, and you're like, oh, now I can see. I turned on the flashlight. And then you go through the cave, and you get to the end of the cave, and there's a snake. Oh, I'm sorry. No, first of all, there's a gap in the ground.
Yes.
And you can't get past the gap.
Okay.
And you're like, well, what do I do here? Oh, I need spring shoes. I don't have spring shoes.
Now you go back to LA.
You try to find the spring shoes. And then maybe they're selling it in the shop. You're like, okay, great. I got the spring shoes. I got the flashlight. Now I'm good. I'm drive back, go in the cave, and you're like, oh, there's nothing in that cave. It's not the right cave. So then you go to the next cave, and then you're like, oh, there's nothing in that cave. So you go to the next cave. By the way, as you're going through that area, there's like enemies attacking you.
Yeah.
And there's like little snakes coming after you.
Yeah.
And then there's birds. And the bird might swoop down and pick up Roger Rabbit and kill him, or the snake might kill you too.
Right.
Anyway, you finally get to the cave, and you're like, this is the last cave. It's got to be this cave. The lights are on. You jump the gap, and then there's a snake. And the snake... And then there's the piece of the will. And you're like, oh my God, the piece of the will. And then you go up, and then the snake kills you. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
So the only way to get by the snake is you need a rattle. Where do you get the rattle? I don't know. You better start searching those fucking buildings in LA. So then you go back, and then you try it.
So you need all the items.
You need all the items.
Yeah.
Is the point.
Yeah.
But it's a pain in the ass. So what you have to do is you got to create like a checklist, and that's what I do when I play the game. I write down all the buildings. I write down 10.
I was thinking about that when you were explaining this. I was like, somebody should make like a PDF that you print out when you play the game. That's like, here are all the buildings, here are all the items, here's all the shit.
I have a little glass dry erase board in front of me when I stream, and I just write down the numbers, and then I cross them off, and then you get all the items, whatever. And then you were talking about this cave. So the other thing is you need to get dynamite and TNT. You come down here, you blow up this tunnel, I should say. You blow up the tunnel. The tunnel is...
Oh, because you need like the plunger and the...
You need the...
Yeah.
Exactly. So you blow up... They boarded it all off so that you couldn't get to Toontown. So you have to blow up the wall, which is in the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Then you get to Toontown. same shit. You get items, you go around, and then you try to find all the pieces of the will. Once you finally get all the pieces of the will, you can then go to Judge Doom. And Judge Doom is in Toontown 2. It's a big, huge building in Toontown 2. When you go in, though, there's a weasel.
Yeah.
And the weasel has a baseball bat. And he's like, you're not coming in. And you're like, I don't know how to get in. And I remember being a kid and getting stuck there and not knowing what to do.
Did you have the will?
I had the whole will.
Wow.
And then I got there and I would try to get in and he doesn't like let you in. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I remember being stuck there for a while. So eventually I figured out, oh my God, you get a baseball.
Yeah.
And I think I had even gotten there with the baseball, but I didn't know that you have to use it. Mm-hmm. So you take the baseball and you throw it, and then he runs after the baseball because he has a bat, and then you can run in the door. And then you're in the building with Judge Doom. And now we're going to talk about Judge Doom.
Yeah. I wonder if they made him take the baseball because like you can't have like a guy with a bat outside a building on the regular Nintendo. Like it's kind of like dark, right? So like, oh, he's playing baseball.
Yeah, he's just playing baseball. That's how they got away with it. So because he's gonna beat the shit out of you with the fucking baseball bat. Yeah.
So that's the story of Justin. Justin always used to keep a bat in his car, right?
Yeah.
And he said that either this was gonna happen or it did happen. He gets pulled over and the cop's like, "Oh, you got a baseball bat. Where's your glove?" Right?
Yeah, right.
So the tip for everybody, if you live in a shady part of town and you keep a baseball bat in your car,
keep a glove.
Keep a glove too.
I like the tip. That's a good tip.
That's your tip for today.
Oh my God, that's horrendous.
Right.
Let's hope that none of these things happen.
Right.
Okay.
Or just carry a gun.
Oh my God. So we're going to talk about Judge Doom now.
Sure.
And this is why I'm glad that we have the dry erase board here. So
yes.
Judge Doom.
Let's go. So Judge Doom.
So the room looks like this. So you got a truck. Okay. I went to art school, by the way.
Did you? Wow. That's beautiful. It's like, is it going on a hill?
On the truck. On the top of the truck is like a cannon.
Yeah.
And it's like shooting the ink or whatever it is. And then there's a ladder that goes up. Mm-hmm. And then and above this, there's another platform.
Yep.
And then there's a ladder here.
Okay.
And then Judge Doom is up here.
This is a weird like courtroom you got here.
Right. Judge Doom's up here. And then you got the dip.
I like his hat.
Thanks. You got the dip down here. And then Roger Rabbit and Jessica are hanging from a fucking thing here, and the dip is eventually gonna kill them
because it's filling up.
It's filling up or whatever.
Yeah.
So you're here, you're Eddie, and you're bouncing around. So I want to talk about his controls a little bit. So here's the thing. So you're constantly tapping. You're constantly tapping the button, but you're not tapping to like punch.
You got to wind up.
You're tapping for him to like bounce, and then when you let go of the button is when he releases, and that's when he punches. So there's this thing that can be done basically to where you can get Judge Doom against the wall, and if you get into a really good rhythm, you can, tap, 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 release, tap, 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 release, and you can keep punching him, and I've seen it done. I can't do it. I have tried over and over and over and over and over, but it's very difficult to do that. So I have my own method to fight Judge Doom. My method to fight and Judge Doom does two things.
Okay.
He shoots out missiles sometimes out of his like face. It's weird. Cuz he's like in the movie he's like cartoon, his eyes are bugging out and stuff like that. So or he punches and he's got this big yellow glove. So if he's shooting the missiles, there's nothing you can do because they fly out really far and Eddie's going to get hit. And if Judge Doom hits you, you get hurt much more than if you hurt Judge Doom. Like you can punch him with full force and it takes like a little bit of health away. If he punches you, it's like a good chunk of your health.
Wow.
So you need to not be getting hit very much. So there is a meter up top. And I want to talk about this meter.
We got the meter.
So this is the meter. It's like up here. Okay?
Yep.
And it's like whatever. It's like Eddie and then Judge Doom.
And that meter is on the screen the whole game, right?
During the Judge Doom fight.
Yeah.
And then there's like a mark in the middle, and like your health, you get punched, you're like down to here. He gets punched, he's like down to there, right?
Right.
So like that's like one punch. This is like how powerful his punch is. That's like your punch. So he punches you again, you're like here. So you get like maybe 5 punches and you're dead. You punch him like again, he's like here. Then he's like here. Then he's here. Then he's here. It's like really unfair, and you've got to get it. You think that like, oh, I got to get it like to the center. Actually, there's no line like that. It's actually just like this.
Yeah.
And you think that like, oh, probably the center is where it is. No, you got to get his thing like all the way like to this, and you actually have like about that much room for where your health is.
So you even have like less room than he does.
It's less room than he has. Like it's like really unfair.
Right.
And So here's my other thing. Here's my math. I actually got to go back to the board one more time. So he can walk to about like here. Let's say he can't like pass that. So if Judge Doom is like standing here and he shoots his missiles out, they can only get to here. So you have like all this room where you can stand where it's like a safe zone.
Yeah.
So when he stops shooting missiles, you get to like right here. And all you got to do is watch his fist, and he does his like fist, and he punches, and that's when you can get a punch in, and then you back out, and then you wait for the animation again. He throws the fist, and then you go in, and you just got to keep doing that, and you just got to be like really, really patient, basically, and do that. And eventually, what happens is if you finally manage to get it all the way down, and that's really hard to do, by the way, because he's going to hit you sometimes and you're going to fucking die. Yeah. So after all that, what happens is you will walk down this ladder and you come over here and you go up. And when you beat the shit out of him, when his life meter goes all the way down, he falls down from here. This is right here. He falls down and he lands right here. Okay. And he starts like shaking eventually. So what you gotta do is Eddie runs down here real quick. You run up the ladder and you gotta grab that cannon that's shooting at them because he's attuned too. Right. And then you come back down the ladder and you have to know to hold the button down. So the first time I ever did this and I was like, holy shit, I knocked Judge Doom off the platform. The whole fucking time, what are you doing? You're tap, 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 because he's like bouncing, right? So I get down to the bottom, I grab the cannon, and I start going tap, 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 because I'm going to like kill Judge Doom. It's not the controls anymore. They changed the controls now. So now you just have to hold the button down, and then it shoots the shit out. But here's what happens. So you also have all your items. Like, let's say you have bombs and a gun and a baseball and all these different things. And you'd be like, well, why can't you just use your items on them? Right. None of the items
Cigar bombs.
Exactly. That's one of them. Yeah. None of that shit works. I've tried it. I've tried them all. They don't work at all. They do nothing. Wow. So you have to only use your fist. So what happens is you realize that you're like, oh, the items don't do anything. I have to do my fist. So now you have an inventory full of all the items that you've collected through the whole game. So here's what happens. When you come down this ladder and you go up and you go to grab this, you also have to select that item now, but you have all these things to cycle through. So you're cycling and you're trying to find the cannon in your inventory. And meanwhile, he's waking up because you only have a limited time. So you finally find the cannon, you walk down the ladder, and then he punches you and you die, and you have to do the entire fight over again. Wow. So here's what you have to do. Get
rid of all your shit before you go in there.
Exactly. You have to, as soon as you get in here, you got to drop all your stuff. So then you're sitting there and you've got 9 wallets. Drop each wallet individually. You got 9 pieces of cheese. Drop the 9 pieces. And there's like 30 items. You got to sit there and drop them all. Yeah. And then go into the fight.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's the Judge Doom fight.
Oh my God.
I come back to this game like every year or two, and I don't know why it is. I think it's probably just because I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Right. But the thing about this game, it's very much like Friday the 13th. Yeah. Because it is full of RNG. Yes. Just like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Like how Jason will appear
Right, different places.
in the different places.
And it could be vastly easier if he appears in the right spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So same thing with this. Like you might be like, oh, I want to get to the exit of Toontown, or I want to blow up that tunnel to Toontown. Well, the game might start you with the dynamite, and you'd be like, oh, well, that's going to be a lot quicker to get to blow up the thing.
Yeah.
But the next time, if you reset the Nintendo, it might just be like a piece of cheese or something. And then it's like, then you got to be searching longer. So depending on the RNG, the game can like fuck you over more.
Right.
Especially with where they put the pieces of the will. Because I had that other map up before of the whole town. They might put the will in places that are like harder to get than other places. So it's like that, essentially.
Yeah, it must be great if you go into the first building and you're just like, doo-doo.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Like you just go in, it's like, oh, there's one of the pieces.
Yeah.
Where other times you'll play and it's like you're 35 minutes into the game, you're like, I've crossed off everything and I still can't find the fucking piece
Because you missed
of the
a
well.
drawer or
I
some
missed
shit.
one drawer. Yeah, I missed one fucking thing. So
Yeah,
it's like,
it's awful.
yeah. So like people like to watch me play this game. And one thing I can say about like a lot of these games is like I grew up with this game and I'm nostalgic for it, but there's some interesting ideas with this game, but overall I would say it's a pretty bad game. But I'm like okay with saying that it's a bad game. Like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like I grew up with it, and
No, because like as a kid, I rented this game like 3-4 times, and I've been to like Toontown like once. Like
Right.
it was like probably now I could figure out more of it, but like back
Yeah.
then it was like, oh, Roger Rabbit, that's cool. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
But you know, it's an excellent movie, and the game is technically amazing looking. But like, if it just had like, how much more time, how many months more would this game have needed to be great? Probably not that many.
like how would they fix it? I would love to see an NES like these hack mod people like come in and like fix all the problems with it, because it's like it's definitely an interesting idea. It's kind of like also what we talk about with Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of good ideas in there.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing with me and games like this. It's like the reason I come back to this or a game like TMNT or Jekyll and Hyde is when I'm streaming something like this, it gives me a lot to say. You can see how
Right.
I've been sitting
Oh
here.
yeah, you're here. You got a whiteboard, everything.
I
Yeah.
got so much to say. So
Yeah.
nothing's worse than I do a stream and I'm like playing a game and the character's just going to the left and I'm like, I don't have anything to fucking say.
By the
about
way,
it.
Mike's been doing whiteboard stuff on his streams lately.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I set it up like that. And I like doing that because I'm going to tell you. So you want to know why I actually did it? So, I mean, I like to draw and everything, but there's a couple reasons I did it. I mean, number one, I like to draw, and I like to draw for the people in the, in the chat. They'll give me a suggestion and I'll draw something. That's fun. That's one reason. But, the biggest reason that I did it is that I sit and I stream for
Right.
hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's not good to sit for that long. So it gives me an excuse to like get up.
Yeah, you have some variety, different camera angle, different standing.
And I get up to like take a break here and there, but
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
not enough. I need to get up more.
Right.
So like it's a good excuse for me to get up and take a break. And then the other really good thing is doing stuff like I just did. Like I'm playing a game and I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't elaborate how to explain something. I have to visualize it.
Yeah.
So I go over to the board and I can draw out what I mean. And
Yeah, I mean,
people-
I've seen this room and things like that,
Yeah.
and it's like that's what it is.
Yeah.
It looks good. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's probably more to say about it, but like it's I can never really fully decide if it's good or bad. But I'm just gonna probably say it's like it's a bad game that has some good things in it.
Yeah. I could see that.
And if you decide for yourself to, I would not. This is not like a game I would recommend for anyone. I don't think anymore.
You kind of have to have been there.
I think this is a game you had to have been there. For
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
So this was Talk About Games. I just wanted everybody to know that there's an audio-only version of Talk About Games everywhere where podcasts can be found. Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check out that one. We do a special episode for our patrons every week. So you get an additional episode of Talk About Games for patrons.
Yeah, we got title cards.
At the top tier, you even get a signed title card like this made by the wonderful Xander every month.
Thumbnail, actually.
Thumbnail
Yeah.
of that. And just make sure to, if you like the episode and you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and we love to hear comments.
And I know a lot of you guys that are watching this in the premiere, this will be like at the end of our YouTube premiere. Be sure to also like go to the actual comments section and like leave some comments, because the thing is when this happens on Twitch and it happens in these YouTube premieres, is the comments are going by pretty quick and it can be hard to respond to things. So if you have, something to say about, Roger Rabbit, or something to say about Hello Neighbor, or any of the games that we talk about, it's easier for us to reply in the comments like later. So, be sure if you have something to say about the episode to leave a comment. And thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye. I have so many things I want to talk about. I'm going to get off track here.
This is the case of a game that was far more popular in Japan than it was in the United States.
They never went to Mordor. What are you talking about?
This is kind of weird.
But there's real detail. There's like wiring underneath.
They're one and done. That's
Yeah,
it. Sold
yeah.
out. So they're super hard to come by.
You heard him, guys. Bring it back. Here we go again. Round two.